I'm not going to go too much in depth with Mulla Sadra because he can be too complicated for, the audience. So what I will do is just give just small basic snippets from his philosophy, but generally give an understanding of what Islamic cosmology is and how the Aql is viewed by Islamic philosophers and saints and Sufis over the, hundreds of years of the Islamic intellectual tradition.
डॉक्टर आयशा, आपकी जो उसमें मैं किताब देख रही थी कि आपकी एक पब्लिश्ड बुक है क्रिएटिविटी इब्न अरबी एंड द ट्रेडिशनल फिलॉसफी, अवेलेबल है अमेज़न वगैरह पे? कहाँ से? अच्छा,
in Amazon, and in that also when I was doing the historical research for my thesis, I came across Mulla Sadra, and of course I read his works also in translation by Dr. Saeed Nasser, and it was just so brilliant that I couldn't help, adding quite what I could add. तो मेरी किताब में आपको मुल्ला सदरा भी मिलेगा, हजरत सोहरवर्दी भी मिल जाएंगे, हजरत इब्न सीना भी मिल जाएंगे, बहुत सारे relating to education, you see, because it's and also creativity, wherever the concept of creativity came into place with the philosophers that I was studying. I added their their understanding of creativity in my book. So I think you'll enjoy the book if you pick it up. It's on Amazon.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम, मेरा नाम शुमाइला है और मैं आपकी होस्ट हूँ आज हस्त नीस्ट के प्लेटफॉर्म से। हम आज हमारी दूसरी नशिस्त है आउट ऑफ द 3 गुफ्तगू की सीरीज में से, और जिसका टॉपिक है कुरान और तसव्वुर कायनात। पहली नशिस्त जो पिछले मंडे को हुई थी, उसमें हमने नेचर एंड हाउ आर्ट कैन बी अ टूल of providing a pointer towards the truth, उसके ऊपर बात की थी, और फाइजा नून उसके ऊपर डिटेल्ड गुफ्तगू की थी। Anybody who wants to go watch it, they can access it through YouTube channel हस्त नीस्त का, या फिर they can go to the Facebook. आज का जो मौजू है कुरान और तसव्वुर कायनात, उसमें एक इम्पोर्टेंट फिगर की हम बात करेंगे। इट इज अराउंड मुल्ला सदरा, और आज की जो हमारी गेस्ट स्पीकर हैं, थोड़ा सा इंट्रोडक्शन उनके बारे में, ऑल्दो शी डजंट नीड एन इंट्रोडक्शन, लेकिन कर्सरी उन लोगों के लिए जो नहीं जानते, शी इज अ PhD इन इस्लामिक फिलॉसफी ऑफ एजुकेशन फ्रॉम मेलबर्न यूनिवर्सिटी। एजुकेटर हैं, और बियॉन्ड एजुकेशन लॉट ऑफ पब्लिश्ड वर्क है इनका, इंक्लूडिंग अ बुक। टुडे शी इज गोइंग टू टॉक अबाउट मुल्ला सदरा, और मुल्ला सदरा के अलावा जो इनकी एक्सपर्ट पर्सनालिटीज जिनके ऊपर इन्होंने काम किया है वो हैं इब्न अरबी एंड अल्लामा मोहम्मद इकबाल। बिसाइड्स वन थिंग दैट आई वुड से अटेंडीज के लिए जो जरूरी है, सुनने वालों के लिए और देखने वालों के लिए, वो ये कि how you transfer that learning into practical knowledge, and the philosophy and the theology, how do you make it meaningful and action able today? तो इसके ऊपर she's a living example of it herself by doing the developmental work that she does outside of the education realm, and it'll be amazing to hear her talk about the concept of the philosophy of Mulla Sadra in detail.
Thank you so much, Shumaila. It's so nice to be able to get connected to Boston. And I'm sitting in Karachi, and I believe Taimur Bhai is in Lahore. So salam alaikum to everybody. I'll start with a little dua. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammadin. كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني ويفقهوا قولي. رب زدني علما. Thank you so much, everybody who's attending the talk. It's Mulla Sadra is one of the greatest philosophers that the Islamic world has ever produced. He was born around the year 979 or 80 Hijri, and that comes to 1571 to 1572, approximately those years. He was born in Shiraz in Iran, and most of his early education was in Shiraz. So first of all, I'm going to give a brief introduction to his life. Then I will just give snippets of some of his unique understanding of what is knowledge, and how human beings have the ability to use knowledge and affect the universe, affect the cosmos. So that's the part that I'm interested in during this lecture. So having been born in Isfahan, he studied under one of the greatest minds of his time, whose name was Hazrat Mir Damad. He was a very notable student, and although he differed at a very young age with the teachings of his professor, he still was accepted and understood to be and known to be an intellect worth educating by some of the other great minds in the region. He mastered the intellect and transmitted sciences by Bahauddin al-Amili. That one of the teachers was very famous, great professor emeritus of Islam, who taught him the intellectual sciences. Intellectual sciences are which included logic, mathematics, astronomy, the sciences of those times. But they also included, of course, the religious sciences. And when we talk about transmitted sciences, it means jo taklidi, the knowledge which comes from what is passed on from one generation to another, from one master to another, from different parts of the world, even from the Greek philosophy, especially from the Greek philosophy, because Islamic philosophy was the one that Islamic philosophers were the one who discovered Greek philosophy after it had been lost for a long time during the medieval era. I mean, before the medieval era. So he was educated by all these great masters, but there came a time in his life where he decided that it wasn't enough to learn, but it was important to actually seclude himself and use all the knowledge that he had gained over, and the knowledge that he had gained was more, over 1,000 years of knowledge that he had gathered. But he was not satisfied with just learning and like as though it is just part of your factual knowledge. He wanted to turn it into integrate all of this knowledge. For that purpose, he lived separate from everyone else in a very small village called Kahak, which is near Qom, in Iran. Then he returned from Kahak after having written many books, about 50 books he wrote in his lifetime, and he came back into the world of university and teaching, and he started teaching his philosophy to the students from then on. He died in Basra, or it could have been Najaf. We're not sure about that. And he died on his way back from his 7th pilgrimage. So his 50 works are on logic, peripatetic philosophy. Peripatetic means, I love this word, it means the person who, or people who are walking. Because Aristotle never sat down and taught his philosophy. He used to walk, and all his students had to go around with him. So peripatetic means somebody who, moving philosophy, literally. So, but what it actually means is that basically he taught the Aristotelian school of philosophy, which was inherited by the Muslim philosophers. He also was a great Quranic commentator, and he, of course, had his own philosophy, which is called Al-Hikmatul Muta'aliyah. Now, hikmat means, of course, wisdom. We all know that. But Al-Muta'aliyah is the concept of the highest, aliyah, the highest wisdom possible for human beings to attain. And it is also translated by Dr. Nasser, by Sayyid Hussain Nasser, as the transcendental theosophy. Now, theosophy means a combination of theology and philosophy. So when you combine these two words, they become theosophy. So he was considered one of the greatest theosophists of his time. So it included theo, meaning God. Theo is a Latin word which means God, and it means that he was very keen to understand the concept of God, as well as Sophie comes from the word wisdom. The whole wisdom tradition, the whole philosophical tradition was part of his own unique philosophy. Now, I'd like to just touch upon what his concept of knowledge was. This is something which is very unique in his philosophy, which we do not find in other philosophers. Now, knowledge he understood as that which transforms human beings. Knowledge is not worth being called knowledge if it does not transform the person who is gaining it. Therefore, what is understood as knowledge, for instance, in the modern world, basically, which could be just a collection of facts or a collection of concepts or understanding of concept, was not good enough as a definition for this great mind, because he believed that unless and until knowledge has the capacity to transform the human being into a higher state of consciousness, knowledge is not knowledge. So this is a very, very fascinating concept, and actually psychology nowadays is starting to, of course, and the great minds have always understood that any creative mind, whether they are scientists or whether they are engineers or whether they are just simple housewives who are making a meal, they know that it's not good enough just to know the recipe. It's more important to be able to cook something which tastes even better than what is written in the recipe. So, and then of course you have to eat it. You just don't just cook it and look at it. You have to eat it. You have to experience the taste of it. You have to digest it. You have to, so that your whole being is transformed by this activity, by this creative activity of cooking a simple meal. So what I'm trying to say is, his understanding of knowledge was actually what knowledge should be understood as by educationists, if they're in a university. Because what's the point of just giving a number of facts and number of concepts to students, unless we give them the tools of how to use that knowledge in a way which is meaningful for the students, in a way which affects their lives, and in a way which will transform them to attain whatever goals they have set for themselves, or in fact, this knowledge, especially because it is related to wisdom, means that it will not just help you to attain goals, but maybe it will help you to realize what is the higher purpose of your life. And not just realize what's the higher purpose, but give you the ability to attain that higher purpose. So that's what knowledge means when Mulla Sadra is talking about it. Now, I'll just give you a definition which I have written down regarding his concept of human aql. So human aql is the mental and heartfelt ability of the human beings to fully participate in knowledge and transformation that affects the very substance of things. So I'll repeat that because this is a little bit complicated maybe for people who have not studied philosophy, but I'll repeat it. Basically, human aql is the mental and heartfelt. Now I'm using the word heartfelt deliberately here because later on I'll explain the connection between aql and heart from the Islamic philosophical perspective. So it is, aql is the mental and heartfelt ability of human beings to fully participate in knowledge and transformation that affects the very substance of things. Now, this is a very, very powerful definition of, and basically this concept is also called his theory of trans, he calls it the transubstantial motion. That's the English translation of a very interesting theory which he came up with. And he basically believes that human beings, when they truly gain knowledge, the knowledge that they gain transforms not just the human beings, but the human beings gain the capacity to have an effect on whatever they are working on or whatever they are learning. So human capacity to gain and move from one level of consciousness to another level of consciousness, or from substrata of knowledge to a higher strata of knowledge, is what he emphasizes in his understanding of knowledge. And he calls it, basically it's translated as transubstantial motion. And I'd like to read out how Dr. Saeed Hussain Nasr explains this concept. Mulla Sadra saw the whole world of nature as partaking in a transformation that affects the very substance of things. He saw the world of corporeal existence, and of course not the immutable, intelligible world, as being like a long caravan moving from the lowly state of material existence to the empyrean. Without this movement, which Corbin called poetically La Inquiétude it's French, so I'm not good at pronouncing because I don't know French, implying any form of Darwinian evolution or transformation. In divorcing traditional cosmology from its reliance upon Ptolemaic astronomy, in integrating the dimensions of time and space, in providing a means to understand natural transformations without falling into the error of evolutionary reductionism, and in many other ways, Mulla Sadra created, on the basis of the doctrine of transubstantial motion, a natural philosophy that can function and be viable even in a contemporary setting with all the challenges of modern science, and yet still remain faithful to the reality of prophecy. Now, I know this sounds difficult, but what basically he's saying is that Mulla Sadra was able to combine the understanding that we have of science in the modern world with the prophetic knowledge that has been provided to human beings from the moment Adam became the first prophet. So his understanding of knowledge and the ability to get educated is that we human beings are organically connected to the cosmos. So we are not just a separate body which does not affect the cosmos. We are a body with a soul, with a spirit, with an intellect, which is deeply connected to the soul, to the spirit, and to the body of this outer universe, which is called the cosmos, which in Arabic is called, cosmology is called tasawwur-e kainat, so, or in Urdu also, and I think in Farsi also, tasawwur-e kainat. So this is the most fundamental understanding of the human beings that human beings had all along, starting from Adam throughout the 124,000 prophets who came with revealed knowledge. And all of that revealed knowledge was related to this concept of oneness, of Tawheed, of this organic connection between this me, the I, the individual self that we seem to think is totally separate from each and everything else in the universe. This is an illusion. This is an illusion. What is reality is that actually at the deeper level of our existence, at the level of existence of the spirit, of the level of existence of the intellect, at the level of the existence of human emotions even, because emotions are God-given. They are not something that we can concoct. Yes, we affect our emotions through our thoughts, and thoughts do produce emotions, but there are certain emotions, for instance, falling in love. It's not possible to fall in love, even if we try very hard with somebody, we just don't fall in love with them, because it's a God-given opening of the heart towards another human being. So similarly, this deep understanding of the organic nature of the connection between the human beings and the outer cosmos or the universe was very common throughout human history. What has disrupted it, and that is what Dr. Nasser was pointing out in his book. This book, by the way, is worth reading. It's called Islamic Philosophy from its Origin to the Present. It's an amazing book, because within one book you get an understanding of the history of Islamic philosophy. And also you get to know some of the great minds that have affected all of knowledge, especially the knowledge of the modern world even, and scientific world. So what I'm trying to say is that I'd like to emphasize this point, that the concept of Tawheed, which we know in Islam, and which we believe is Tawheed meaning oneness of God, has been interpreted throughout the centuries, throughout the millennia, by the great prophets in not just as an intellectual concept, not just as something like something out there, God is out there who is one. No, it has been understood through all the revealed literature of God. I mean, whether it's the Bible or the Torah or all the many books that have been lost, whose names even we don't know. But if we start researching other religions, for instance, the Hindu religions or the Buddhist religions, and we start looking at the actual wordings of the great minds that wrote or wrote those books down, but sometimes you are completely aware of the fact that they're not human words, because those sayings are as powerful as and there's a basically the concept of oneness of God is presented so powerfully in Bhagavad Gita, for instance, that one realizes that these words cannot be human. They are revealed words of God, and that is true in every religion. Every religion, in one way or another, by use of its own unique terminology, which was extremely important and basically deeply understood by the great minds for whichever region of the world God was revealing that religion to, that knowledge was connected to this concept that it's not good enough to believe in the oneness of God. It's not good enough to understand it intellectually, but it is very important to transform that knowledge into your life by feeling through the heart, by experiencing through your emotions, and beyond the emotions, there is a part of us which is intuition, the feeling that we are deeply connected to each and everything in the universe. There is no such thing as the other, because the whole concept of oneness, Tawheed, negates the concept of the other. And Islamic philosophy is very clear about that, because we start our kalma, we start our code of becoming a Muslim, or the words that we have to use to become a Muslim. We start with the word La ilaha illallah. What does La mean? It's very simple. Nothing. There is nothing except the one who is worshipped. Nothing, there is nothing except the one who is worshipped. Now, if we focus on the one that is worshipped, there is no way we cannot start truly feeling the oneness which lies beyond forms. You see, philosophy is a beautiful subject, because it teaches us how to navigate this world of forms, of separation, of substance, of accidents. These are the words that are used in philosophy all the time. But the greatest minds have given their own different kind of philosophies to make some kind of, synthesis and integrated understanding of the amazing matrix which is God's, which cannot be created by an unintelligent, chaotic entity. Because the more deeper we research into even science, or the more we use logic, which is not devoid of experiential knowledge, the more closer we come to the knowledge that the oneness of all things can be explained scientifically. For example, the word energy is used these days. How, everything can be put down to energy, or we can use the word light, and how everything can be reduced to the concept of light. Or we can, I wish there was a scientist, my Dr. Ataur Rahman sitting here, he would give me some beautiful explanation of, the quantum physics and subatomic particles, which when you go down to their concepts of the God particle. But all of these are a way to explain or to understand how deeply we are connected to the cosmos. But what I'd like to point out today is not just the cosmos, but to the metacosm. Now, this is a new concept which most people would not have heard if they haven't studied philosophy. So I'll come back to the concept of microcosmos. Microcosm means a small universe. So the Islamic intellectual philosophers, they understood the human being as a microcosmos. Then they called the universe, as a cosmos. And then the greater being who is above and who is transcendental, as well as who is immanent within these two, microcosmos and the macrocosmos, is a being who can be categorized as a metacosmos, meaning God himself. So we are deeply connected as a microcosmos. We are deeply connected to the cosmos as well as the metacosm, meaning because, basically God says in many religions, not just in our religion, that there's a very beautiful hadith. God says that I have created man in my own image. In Christianity, this belief is very prevalent, in Torah as well. So what does that mean? I mean, human beings being made in the image of God, it's very difficult to grasp that. But philosophers over the thousands of millennia have thought deeply and have come to the conclusion that we have to visualize the human being as a very powerful, intense, compact image, not just in his, not really as an not so much in the physical bodily form, but in our inner reality. The inner reality, which includes the concepts of aql, meaning the intellect, qalb, which is the heart, soul, which is nafs in Arabic, and of course, ruh, which is the spirit. So these are those aspects of human being which cannot be seen, really. They cannot be tasted by human five senses. We can't actually define them properly. Whatever amount of definition we have for all these concepts will come short of the experience of the human heart, or the experience of the human soul, of the experience of the human intellect. How can any book written by anybody actually grasp the full depth of understanding of any philosopher or any great mind? Words are a limitation. Words are a limitation to the amazing beings that we truly are from inside. But of course, the modern world has not given much importance to these concepts. We have reduced the understanding mostly in psychology, of the human being, and psychology studies the human being using the scientific method, which the scientific method in its own way has a limitation within its own definition, because it is the method which uses only empirical research, and empirical research will only involve the 5 senses. But it cannot. How can you actually, bring the concept of the experience of love of God, or experience of love of your mother, or experience of the great joy that a child has when he's running around on the green grass, to any intellectual words, see what I'm trying to say? So therefore, the modern world has lost a huge aspect of understanding wisdom by not realizing how the individual human being is connected to the cosmos. So now I'm going to show you some drawings I made to make it easier to understand these concepts. I'll start with, I hope this is a little bit complicated, but it includes a lot of concepts, but maybe I should start with this drawing. Yes, this one. I don't know if you can see. Is it clear or not really?
Gee, if you bring it a little bit closer.
Okay.
Perfect.
Is that all right?
Yes. Yeah, we can see.
Okay. So what I want to show you is, in the traditional Islamic cosmology, there are these concepts which are interrelated, and they're not really separate from each other. There is a deep connection, deep organic connection between these concepts. So I'll start with the concept of, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God, he has a deep connection, and his first creation, according to Islamic intellectual tradition, was the Great Spirit. It's also called, in Ibn al-Arabi's terms, al-Ruh al-Kulli, al-Ruh al-Kulli, which means the perfect or the complete spirit. And we also, through the Sufi understanding of this concept, we call it the Noor-e Muhammadi. So the first of creation was this amazing light from the light of God, which within its being contained the traces of each and every trait of God, each and every characteristic of God, which contained, like seeds, the potential for the same qualities that God himself had. And therefore, God fell in love with this first of creation, because it was like an organic mirror that was reflecting God's own qualities. And if you think of how human beings fall in love, how do we fall in love? Usually when we fall in love with another human being, it's not so much with the reality of that human being, but we fall in love with those beautiful aspects of that human being that we conceive in our heart, which we know a perfect human being should have, or which we can sense we have within ourselves. So the falling in love is a recognition of one's perfect spirit and soul, of one's own perfect spirit and soul, with the beautiful spirit and soul of another human being. It's not so much related to our real self, because our real self is actually flawed. We are flawed. We have not reached perfection. We have so many weaknesses. So then the whole journey starts of truly loving another person, because we have to acknowledge that nobody can be perfect except God himself. And we have to learn to forgive ourselves and forgive the other person, and work with the beauty that we can foresee. So similarly, God, I mean, I'm just trying to give a slight understanding. I mean, we can't really experience what God must have experienced when he created this great first light. Now, for Muslims, we call it Noor-e Muhammadi. The Christians call it Christos, the light of Christ. The Buddhists have another word for it, which is related to their terminology. The Greeks called it nous. The Romans called it the first intellect. So when Mulla Sadra is using the word intellect, he is using it from this concept as the first intellect or the higher intellect. And then the next of creation, from the first of creation, was the creation of the universal soul. So first was the universal spirit, which encompassed within itself all of the creation that was about to be made by God. Because if you remember the story of the Bible or the Quran, that Genesis, or how Adam came into being, the first of creation, I mean first human being, he was given knowledge of the kind that the angels were not given. So what does that mean? How Mulla Sadra and the great philosophers, and including Hazrat Ibn al-Arabi and Avicenna and all the great saints have interpreted that, is that Adam was actually transmitted with this first light.
Wow.
Do you understand? And with this first light of knowledge and the seeds of all of what God was about to create, so that was planted as a light of prophecy within Adam. And through Adam's progeny, throughout all the prophets, 124,000 prophets, as we believe, right up till the time when Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the actual physical human manifestation of this first light, this first universal light. And before him, the most perfect manifestation of this light was Jesus, Hazrat Isa alayhi salam. And before him was the other prophets that came before. So this is a beautiful continuation of the same knowledge, the same message of oneness that was given to the first human being, to understand that yes, you have been made unique, but you are not alone. and you have a very puny body, a very weak body, you really can't judge yourself from this body, because what is planted within you, the hidden, the batin, is much greater, because the spirit is connected to the spirit of not just the universe, but to God himself. And the soul of the human being here, this part, is connected to the universal soul, which was the second of creation. And this soul is something which we do not understand in the modern day world at all. In a modern day world, still understands the concept of the spirit and understands the concept of the body, but the realm of the soul, which is what we call the imaginal world, which is what we call barzakh in Arabic, which is what is the most powerfully creative aspect of human beings, because it was through God's own spirit that he created the soul, and through the willpower, the spirit is connected to human willpower, and it is also connected to God's willpower. So through the willpower of God, spirit manifests things in this imaginal world. And once they are manifested in the imaginal world, God then says to a thing, be, and it is. It is found to be manifested in physical form. So then I wanted to point out how Islamic cosmology understands the most important aspect of the human being. Most people in the modern world, we have now gone and started giving a lot of importance to the word mind and brain. But in the medieval era, as well as, it didn't matter whichever part of the world you went to, there was a deep understanding that reason is, or the ability to be logical and rational, is only one part of the word aql, the concept of the intellect. It's only reason and logic are only one aspect of the higher intellect which is found in human beings. And that higher intellect is not just that which is found from a logical and rational point of view. It is deeply connected to the intuitions we get in the heart, because the words of many words which are coming from Hadith Qudsi, which are these special hadiths that were given to the Prophet Muhammad SAW to basically reveal this concept that Allah dwells in the qalb of human beings. There is a very beautiful hadith which I will relate.
That drawing is so beautiful to see, and आपने जिस तरह से उसको visually accessible बनाया है, it's very nice. So in other words, Mulla Sadra की जो cosmological interpretation है, he's saying that using that logic and reasoning, which is part of the higher intellect and has been given to you, and synthesizing that with the qalb, you can actually realize your higher potential and that higher intellect. Would that be right to say? Okay, awesome. Do you have any other drawings to show, or are we wrapping up?
Yes, today I came up with this drawing, but this is a bit more complicated. It looks complicated, but really it's giving an understanding of how we as human beings who are microcosms are connected to the universe or cosmos around us, as well as how we are connected to metacosm, meaning God. So I just wanted to show you that the the hadith that I wanted to quote was that there is no place. I mean, I'm going to not quote the actual words, but the theme of the hadith is that no place in the universe can accept me except the heart of a believer. This is the gist of the hadith. Taimur Bhai might remember the exact wordings, so he'll come up with it. So the heart of a believer. Now, I mean, if you look at the word heart, these days it's only understood as a biological pump. But we're not talking about that heart. We're talking about the experience of being human. If we don't have the experience of being human is so deeply connected to our emotions, and it's so deeply connected to all our emotional memories from the moment we, have our first memory, and that we cannot separate knowledge and our understanding of reality from the experiences that we have in our hearts. And this is a subtle organ which belongs to the psyche, which is a actual body different from this body. It is a subtle body which is formed by our how we develop our personality. It's a subtle body which has another subtle body behind it, or immersed, or let's say, the most subtle body that we have is the body of the spirit, in which we existed before we were brought onto the earth. So that body, which is mentioned in the Quran, in the, all the Abrahamic literature, as well as in many other traditions, religious traditions, these three bodies form our basic being. The physical body and the subtle body of the psyche, or the self, or nafs, and then even a purer body, which is absolutely full of light. That's the body of the spirit. And the amazing thing about the ruh, we are talking about the ruh now, that ruh is never corrupted, because it has been blown by God from his own being, from his own being. So it can never be corrupted. It is the higher self of ours, which is always looking down at what we are doing on this earth, with all our bodily needs and weaknesses and desires and passions. And so it's very much part of our inner being.
That's beautiful that you're explaining it, and in terms of the stages of evolution, you could call it, that how from a physical body you could evolve into a higher. No.
Yeah, we don't like to use the word evolution. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but the traditional understanding of reality cannot be confused with what is understood as evolution in Darwinian terms.
Yeah, I was not using it in that terms. Maybe we could use refinement or discovery.
Yes.
Okay, yes. So talk a little bit more. I know we're on time almost, but it would be good to touch base upon how the physical realm and the tools that we have today, especially like you talked about emotions, how they can form a connection and be our reason towards that refinement, and a little bit about the role of creative prayer in it.
Oh, yes. That would be I'm glad you're reminding me of that. So why I give some importance to the concept of how heart and aql are related in the understanding of Islamic cosmology. So there is a concept of creative prayer, which all the Sufis, all great religions teach us. How is a very creative tool, basically, that's been given to all human beings. Now, we don't usually analyze how successful prayers can be attained. There are many conditions, of course. You have to be in a condition of purity. Of course, you can't have, anything that's defiling your body. Secondly, you have to be eating food which is halal, meaning that which is gained from righteous means rather than unlawful means. Third, there are other conditions also, but mostly these two are the major ones. Then the prayers are heard which come from a place of love and concern and goodness. Prayers, of course, which don't come from goodness are not, then we can't call them prayers.
Yeah.
Now, another aspect of prayer is, let's break it down. How do prayers come into reality? How do we manifest that which is our deepest desire into reality? So the way it happens is that first it's the thinking. One has to be very clear about what we desire. When we desire something, it should be a pure desire. Usually these desires are put within us by God, really. I'm not talking about instinctive desires. I'm not just, even for those like eating a nice, biryani, or sometimes you have the design. God is so kind. He's like a mother. He'll provide it quite soon. I find him very kind in that way. But what I'm talking about higher desires, like a fulfilling career, like to get to know what one's purpose in life is, or to find the right partner, or how to navigate our way through many challenges that life imposes us. So the way to go about it is to come from a place of firm belief that the prayer will be heard. If there's any doubt while you're praying that God give me this, but in my heart I'm doubting that God will not give it, then that prayer is negated, because doubts, as we know, is a translation of the word vaswase, which means that which basically they lower our energies. They bring us to a very low level of consciousness. So prayers are heard when the heart can sense and feel a higher level of consciousness, and a pure level of consciousness, where we are. Then the thoughts have to be clear. The imagination has to be clear. What is it that we truly want? Visualization always helps. It's very much part of creative prayer. So if for instance, I'm living in Karachi, I'm very upset about how dirty it has become, how sad the management doesn't look after it. So there are many ways of going about changing this reality. And of course, it's wonderful to go about doing it in physical form. But what is a creative prayer? I will actually start imagining different parts of Karachi looking like the best of its parts, or looking like, what I can imagine to be the green, clean Karachi that I want. So therefore, my imagination will lead me to an emotion. When I see that this Karachi is looking so beautiful, my emotions will be involved in the prayer. And when my emotions are positive, the ability to manifest our dreams becomes, let's say, closer to reality. We cannot necessarily predict whether they will come true or not, because that we are asking God, the highest being, to manifest that reality. But the chances are that such a prayer will not be negated. The reason being, God is always using the intercession of his the beings whom he has created in his own image to manifest the best they can in this life.
Right. And it also becomes like a channel of using the tools that you have and channeling into that spiritual realm, right? We do have one question, Dr. Ayesha. It is, Asad is asking, do we as individuals come into the physical form as one single entity, the spirit, or do we have our own individual spiritual entities as well? So on the spiritual level, basically he's asking, is there an individuality or a duality? And then yes, go ahead.
Yes, it's a very good question. And I was fascinated by this question when I was doing my research for my PhD. And Hazrat Ibn al-Arabi reveals it all. And he says, don't worry, you as soon as you were created, you were a separate body. And you will always remain a separate body, even in your most subtlest form, which actually is, although it is subtle, but it's the most real part of our beings. And all of revealed literature regarding heaven, or paradise, or what will happen or in hell, the understanding is very much about sensual experiences. Like the body will burn and it will the skin will be reborn, and then they'll burn again in hell. And if it is heaven, then it is. And the one thing that we cannot negate as a believer is the words of God. So Ibn al-Arabi explains that the words of God are literal, and yet we have to understand the deeper meaning, which means that actually those experiences that are being talked about are of a realm of reality so way beyond ours that it's very difficult to explain. Only symbolic words are used in all the literature to explain what will happen in that realm.
Thank you so much. Asad also has a comment that the difference between comment or a question, difference between the Jesus and Muhammad is essentially that they encompass varying levels of the traits of God. Can that be said?
No, each prophet brought the perfection of all of prophecy.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And then we have another question from Facebook. Ali Hamad wants to ask, how can one access the imaginal world? It is said to be connected. It is said to connect the corporeal with the intelligible world. So how do we?
Yes, excuse me, I have to put my phone on the charger because I don't want to lose you. 1 second, I thought I had enough charge.
No problem.
Here we go. Not the best technology. Oh my God.
If anyone else has questions, please do ask them. You can also unmute and ask, or put it in the chat.
Okay. Now we are set to go. Hopefully.
Assalamu alaikum. I don't have a question, but can I add on to the question about this corporal reality? Isn't it like because we are spiritual beings in a human body, so in order to access corporal reality, we should just have the ability to see things beyond and then experience it?
Sorry, I didn't understand. What did you mean? Can you repeat it?
Yeah, let me rephrase the question, Dr. Ayesha. The question is, how can one access the imaginal world? It is said to connect the corporeal with the intelligible world. Uske upar, we were getting a comment. Like if you address the question, it'll answer her comment as well.
can we connect the imaginal world with our life?
How can we
access it? Well, through your own imagination,
through
your own dreams, through asking questions deeply within yourself about anything that you find a mystery, which you want answered. It's God always answers genuine questions. This is the experience of all people who go on a spiritual path, that God will always answer your question. If it is a true quest for truth, he will answer it in different ways, either through symbolic, hum jise in Urdu we say nishani, or shan, through some event or some symbolic creature that comes in front of us, like some animals or birds or some phenomena of nature which will affect us deeply regarding the question that we are asking, because we live in a symbolic universe and a spiritual universe. So God doesn't necessarily have to, he uses many means to answer our questions and to have us connect to the imaginal world. So the imaginal world helps us to understand our own inner self, as well as how, and it teaches us wisdom, a lot of wisdom.
So in other words, we could say the curiosity, and it could look like a different thing for everybody, but whatever spikes your interest and you take the lead on that, and keeping that curiosity alive will take you on the journey.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. If there are no more questions, we would like to wrap up the session. We are way past our time. Thank you so much, Dr. Ayesha, for your time. In summary, I would say that the highlights for me from today were that one of the facts that how the definition of Aql as defined by Mulla Sadra is something different than how we use it today, and how that Aql or higher intellect is a means to be connecting to the creator. And then also was very, very beautiful to hear and see that visual where you actually have listed the levels of consciousness and existence. And that was very beautiful to see that, heart in a way is kind of the guiding light and a place of a place where, how God says that, the burden could not be given to the burden was not taken by any other creature, but it was taken by the God. It was taken by the humans, sorry. So that was very beautiful to see that how Mulla Sadra defines the higher intellect, and at the spiritual level, not below that. And the quest is to reach that level eventually to realize your full potential. So really beautiful talk. Thank you so much. If anybody has any comments, you're welcome to unmute and say those. We see some familiar names here. We'll wait for a minute and then we can wrap up.
Dr. Ayesha, thank you so much for the talk.
My pleasure. May I know who's speaking?
My name is Bilal Farooq. I'm in Lahore.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for listening. Any question?
Perhaps after your next lecture.
Okay. I have something to say at the end, if everyone is finished.
Dee, go ahead.
I just wanted to share something really beautiful, which is connected to this whole talk. There was a very simple man, nobody special, but just like somebody, an ordinary man who came up to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and asked him that, look, Prophet Muhammad, I have a problem. I'm not good at prayers. I don't keep my fasts. I'm not good with all of the rituals, connected with the beautiful religion. But I know one thing, that I love you and I love God. So what will happen to me in the afterlife? So the Prophet had a beautiful answer, and it was so simple. You will be with the ones you love, with the one you love.
Wow.
with the ones you love. So this is the theme that I wanted to emphasize, the love of God for the first of his creation. And the reciprocating relationship, the love between both of them, which resulted in the creation of the whole cosmos and this amazingly strange creature called the human being. And love is at the core of it.
Absolutely. And this was very beautiful to hear the mind and thought and thinking of Mulla Sadra, because we often don't hear that in our normal life. So it was something that if you're interested in learning more about, now you have some information about what Mulla Sadra talks about, and then you can go on and have your own journey of exploring his theology and his philosophy. So absolutely beautiful talk, Dr. Ayesha. Thank you so much for your time today. We're honored to have you here. Thank you so much, Mr. Neest. Thank you.
Thank you, Temur Bhai. Thank you so much for inviting me.
No, thank you very much for your time, and Shumaila for yours also.